Sideshow Live. We have kind of a full house today for this is our morning show. I don't know if you guys know this. We sort of tried to tell you, but we have not one, but two shows today. Two. This is two, not four.
That's one plus
one plus one is two.
11.
Oh man, I'm just going to keep confusing everyone. There are two shows. So we have a quick one this morning because we had actually so much to put into the show that we needed to split it. Plus, there may or may not be special guests later who couldn't make it into the morning. But we do have one special guest who could make it into the morning. So, J. Scott Campbell's in the house, you guys. Oh my God. So, that's awesome. We have two shows, and I'm just going to keep saying it because, like, the more you say something, the more it's relevant, right? Mm-hmm. Right? That's what we learned. So, let's just get started. First off, we have to talk about this. The Infinity War trailer dropped.
It did.
It did drop. Can we get some comments here, please, people? Like nothing is like we're all just silent because I think we're all just waiting, right? We're all just waiting for it to happen because like I don't even want to like speculate as to what might happen.
Like Cap had a beard.
Cap had a beard. Cap doesn't have a shield. Cap has long hair.
Vision had a face.
Vision
had a face.
Vision had a face.
A different face.
Vision had a different face. There's blonde Scarlett Johansson. Oh my God, what's happening?
Has a shaved head and a missing
Whoa!
eye. Hulk's purple.
And what has happened? Thanos doesn't have a helmet, which seems to be like the point of conversation across everything. Do you think that it's like fused to his head? He takes it off sometimes, guys.
But he does have a smile on his face.
He does have a smile on his face. And just watching him be like foot into the gauntlet. Oh, so much. I actually had to watch it twice because the first time I cried all the way through the trailer.
She did.
Yeah. I was like, Dennis can vouch for it because I walked into his office and was like, have you watched it? Can you watch it again with me? I need to watch it again. Yeah. Anyway, so if you guys are talking about Infinity Wars in Facebook, you are talking to Kitty. If you're talking about it on Periscope or on YouTube, you are talking to our favorite atomic blonde, John Wick. So, wow. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about. So we don't have any video breaks, right? There's no video breaks in my notes. No video breaks?
No.
Okay. So I'm just going to do this really awkward reach.
That's okay. It wasn't that awkward.
You guys. I know.
Red scarf.
I wanted to wear my full silk outfit, but that was Chicky told me I couldn't. So, because that would have been awkward for like the Abby Chase segment because we would have needed someone to come in like full Abby Chase gear as well, and I'm not blonde.
Dennis will.
Dennis will, or I was going to say we have an atomic blonde in YouTube, but you can't see him or her. Hey, he's been quite a few characters, both male and female. So there you go. But first, we would like to show you this feature on the Mark Brooks Artist Series Spider-Verse statue of Silk, and I can hardly contain my excitement for this statue. Silk is one of these characters that, like, while she only came about, and she's rather new to the Marvel universe. She only came about in 2014. Her first cameo was in that was her first appearance. Her first cameo was in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, Issue 1. And she was just like not a faceless, but a nameless character that Dan Slott kind of drew into the background. And now she is she has had 2 volumes of her series. She has participated in major Spider-Verse events. She has teamed up with Black Cat. She has teamed up with Spider-Woman. She's teamed up with Spider-Gwen. She's teamed up with Spider-Man. She's so ingrained in the Spider-Verse that obviously we had to make a statue of her. And we could not be more excited. She is part of this Mark Brooks Spider-Verse collection, which also includes Spider-Gwen and Spider-Man. We debuted it at NYCC this year. She is a 5th scale statue, and her exclusive is an alternate portrait swap out that has her red bandana mask on.
It has different hair.
And it has, slightly different hair. I'm so excited for this piece. I remember the first time you showed me the concept for it, I cried. Yeah, I just get really emotional and I just start crying because like that's like my emotional reaction to everything. I get happy and I cry. So if you would like to RSVP for her, go to sideshow.com/silkstatue, right? Sideshow.com/silkstatue. And remember, she goes up for pre-order tomorrow, which is November 30th, if you're watching this in the future, between noon and 3 p.m. So November 30th, between noon and 3 p.m. Personally, all her details are just like spot on, down to the fact that look at the bottom of her foot. The sole of her shoe is spider webbing.
These artists and these artisters are very picky and detail oriented.
It's
Hey,
hey,
you know what they want for sure.
Exactly, because I feel like every artist who embodies these characters has details that they love about them, and I think we'll probably get more into that when J. Scott comes on. But that's the stuff that's amazing. We asked the project manager downstairs why there are dragons on her base, and I personally thought it was because of the time that she fought Smaug.
That's totally why.
It's not why, according to the project manager. It is to reference her ethnic origins. But I was like, oh no, it's totally because of this. And they're like, oh, did she fight Smaug? And I was like, yeah, she totally fought Smaug. Come on, guys, come on. Anyway, she had to save her parents. Anyway, I cannot.
Did she cross over in the Hobbit universe?
She did not cross over. Well, she just called the dragon Smaug, and she wrote it at one point, and it was pretty rad. Anyway, we need to get in apparently closer to her because of all the questions that are coming in. Everyone's like, can we please get a close-up on the details? And okay, yeah, wow. The base is a street lamp. It's a street lamp. It's meant to go with, because Spider-Gwen is sitting on a street sign, and Spider-Man, just keep pushing her forward, keep going forward. There? Yeah, awesome. Do you have any questions in Facebook?
Well, we got some people asking what her specific powers are in the Spider-Verse.
Well, she was bitten by the same spider as Peter Parker.
You asked the right person.
As Peter Parker, but she was kidnapped. I'm not going to cry. She was bitten by the same spider as Peter Parker, so her powers are very similar and often parallel to him. As you can see, she does have natural webbing that comes out of her fingertips. But she was kept by Ezekiel in a basement for years and years and years until she was let out / escaped. So a lot of her is a journey to find out who she actually is, since she spent so much time isolated. And she has a more attuned spider sense, which she calls her silk sense, than Spider-Man. And Peter Parker has even mentioned that she is faster, but not stronger than him. So in terms of stuff like that, like they were bitten by the same spider, but they wound up with slightly different powers, if not like adjacent to one another.
These two fingers? Is it when she puts her fingers together?
It's kind of like a
shoot her webbing if she puts her fingers together.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
Scissors.
It's very like it's like this in the comics whenever she does it,
Yeah.
because like Peter's like this and she's like this.
So like rock, paper, scissors.
Kind of, yeah. But she's like double guns.
Did
Anyway.
we get a height measurement on her?
We did not. Now this is a prototype, so it's very fragile. She's about, I would say 15 if you're, because this is very fragile. This is a prototype, so I don't want to touch the webbing.
And that goes higher than the head.
Yeah, and the webbing goes higher than the head. So if the head goes up to about 15 inches, the webbing's probably about 15 and like a quarter, 15 and a half. I'm not good at that.
Under 16.
Under 16. Yeah. Why does Silk fight crime? Well, Silk doesn't always fight crime. Sometimes she's the cause of it, because she goes through like a very long character arc to figure out that she would rather fight on the good side than the bad side. Aw, someone thinks I should play Silk in a movie. That's very sweet. Who should play? Well, who should play her? Someone's already playing her. Tiffany Jespison. Oh my God, someone played Silk in Homecoming.
Really?
Yeah, there was.
I didn't know that either.
Oh my God, there was like a little girl. She was on the debate team with him, or it wasn't debate team.
That was the science.
The science team. And Tiffany
The
Espison
character
is called Cindy. So it's speculated that They were on the same field trip. They got bitten at the same time. She just hasn't been taken yet. So there's a character named Cindy. She's of Asian descent. If she disappears and then comes back.
Dang.
I wonder
Yeah.
if she disappeared like halfway through the movie.
No, she's at the end.
Oh, okay.
She's sitting at that table when when MJ gets put as the head of the new
Okay.
science team. Yay! Someone's like, John Wick said spoilers. Pfft. It's been out for 6 months now.
I finally saw it 2 weeks ago.
Aww, I saw it like so many times in the theater. Oh my god. Yeah, this was. I'm a big Spider fan, so I saw it. Oh my god.
I want you to sometime go through everything you love, and you have to make a priority list.
Oh, I can do that. I can do it. I've done it. I had to do it for I had to do it for someone, and I think I did it. I know that you saw it because you laughed at me about my list because you were like, "What is this list of characters?"
It's her hit list.
Yeah, but that would be sad if it was that. So now that we have no video breaks.
We don't.
So
We have a
I don't
glamorous
know.
assistant to help you.
we have a glamorous assistant. Hi, Dennis.
Hi again.
So we have a glamorous assistant to help me. Is he going to bring on our very special guest?
Come on.
Come on over. Bye, Cindy. Grab a chair.
I will grab a chair.
Hi.
Hello there.
Everyone, this is J. Scott Campbell.
It took me a second to realize where to look. I saw the mic.
Yeah, the mic is here.
Hello,
I have
everyone.
to go way more this way. Way more this way. You're front and center now. And how's it going?
It's great. It's fantastic
Wait,
to be here.
Igo's not joining you? Igo is giving up a chance to
Is
go
he
on
hiding
camera?
in the rafters?
I'm just saying, you rarely give up chances to like...
I don't want to.
Are you a camera hog?
Intrude. I just want to. If you guys need help.
Oh, well now Igo's coming this way, so we have to shift again.
That works.
All right. Hi, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's
Yay,
exciting.
I'm so excited that we had the chance to talk to you.
Yeah,
we have several projects of yours. A couple are going to be featured in the after party, but maybe we'll talk about them.
Hey, I'm
little bit.
game for all.
All right, so who do we have here? Like you guys don't know.
This lovely lass is Abby Chase from Danger Girl. And it's exciting even for me to sort of be in front of her. I mean, a lot of times when you're working on these things, you're looking through a computer screen.
Oh,
so
yeah.
so even for me to see it sort of in 3D in front of me is, I mean, it's almost hard for me to take my eyes off of how it turned out. It's just really, really fantastic.
The thing that I always come back to with her every time I see her is she debuted at San Diego Comic-Con this year,
Right.
and I honestly didn't know that her pants were fabric because they're so perfect.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, it's right. It does look like it should be molded on, but it's like the fit just turned out so well. I mean, it's really, and it really gives it that sense of authenticity when you can kind of see like how fabric would really pull and stretch on a figure. I mean, my style is what I kind of call hyper realistic, which is sort of like it's based around reality, but I never sell my style as realistic. It's stylized. It's sort of like in a way Disney would sort of style something, maybe just a little more towards realism. So but it's still neat to see those realistic elements kind of in play with like sort of like real fabrics and that sort of thing. And I really love when you guys see this in person too. The mesh right here on the sides right here. There's a trend right now with exercise wear for females where sometimes there's these panels that are cut out. And I caught on to that trend about a year or two ago, and I was like, boy, that would be a fun way to sort of kind of update a character that's kind of had a classic design in the comic books for many years now, and to kind of give it sort of something a little bit more modern. And I thought that was kind of cool too. So that was really fun to see come to fruition. That was actually able to work out.
I was just going to ask you, when are we getting an Abby Chase fashion line? Because like, now that you know that you can do this.
I like the way you think.
Like, especially you just mentioned workout gear. Like, you could work out in those pants.
Well, hey,
I mean,
it's
if
like,
it's not leather,
I couldn't fit into those pants.
You definitely could work out in those pants.
Don't sell yourself short.
They stretch, right?
Yeah.
Little waistband stretch.
Yeah. We have a question coming from YouTube.
Sure.
Is Abby based on any specific person, like an actress or a loved one?
No, it was always sort of to me like at the time in the late 90s when I first was kind of coming up with sort of the look for her. To me, it was more about having each of the Danger Girls in the cast kind of having something uniquely different. And for some reason, to me, it's funny. I mean, I'm not really sure of the origin of the sort of the hair style, but when you're drawing, you sort of like, or creating something, you try to imagine like what shapes would look interesting when you're drawing it over and over again. And for some reason, the bob haircut, just the idea that it would swing kind of in her face a lot, when it would really kind of indicate action. So when she's jumping around, stuff like that, the idea of, like I said, this sort of bob haircut that would kind of flop and kind of get into her face, cover one eye. To me, it just sort of like there was a sense of action that I could imagine repeatedly coming up over and over again with that hairstyle. So that's sort of why the hair ended up that length. And sometimes so much about design, I mean, it's nice to sort of occasionally think logically, or like, oh, this color scheme would look good against this color scheme, but so much of it is just like instinct. And with her, really just sort of like everything just kind of came together. It just felt right, and when it didn't look right, I ejected it. You know, so to me, it's like it's just kind of like, yeah, I can't say it was overly calculated, or like I said, overly influenced. Certainly over the years, as speculation of possible movies and stuff would come up, people would suggest certain actresses that it looked like. I remember early on, people kind of made the comparison to Charlize Theron, who's still very prominent even now. And I always saw that being a pretty good fit, but I can't say it was modeled after her. But I can certainly see that being a possibility over the years. You know,
one thing I've loved too is, and you and I have talked about this throughout the whole process of creating this piece, was how your styles also evolved. And when we started this, we had some newer artwork, some older artwork, but we had this whole library of Danger Girl, Abby Chase art, and just you could always, even though things might have looked a little bit different here and there over your evolution, it's still like it all felt like her. So it's kind of cool seeing how she started one way and it's evolved, and we got to work with you on kind of like what's the newest look, like not just with the panel breaks and the pants, but also like how that portrait evolved.
Exactly, and I think you also, it's a tricky balance, because most of the artists that I admire, and I think when I talk to other artists, we all have a constantly evolving style, but at the same time, it's tricky to not evolve out of your fan base, or in this case, you know, I could have presented you with a design like, hey, it's this many years later, this is what Abby looks like now, and you go, I don't recognize this character. You know, so you kind of have to walk that line pretty carefully to sort of like update it and update your style and even the look of the character, while still being respectful to the fan base and knowing what they recognize and read as the character they love. Yeah. So I think that's as an artist, I always try to respect that aspect of it while still trying to evolve and nudge things towards whatever my current look is, you know.
So that's interesting to bring up, because you also do a lot of, I mean, Abby Chase is your own character, but you also do a lot of licensed characters as well. So do you approach that differently? Like, for example, when you did our Spider-Verse collection, your own version of that, like when you're approaching someone like Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, how does that differ?
Well, it's interesting with Mary Jane, because I was always sort of surprised and pleasantly surprised that I was allowed to sort of veer away from like what Mary Jane has kind of looked like in many ways in the Spider-Man universe for years and years and years. A lot of people will typically draw the John Romita Sr. Mary Jane, which I love, by the way. I have great affinity for, where she's got kind of this triangle bangs kind of, and her hair is sort of like a deep, rich, almost like burgundy red kind of. So I respect that a lot, but I also could see, like, as an artist, I didn't want to be redundant either. You want to sort of feel like you're bringing something unique to it. Otherwise, why are you doing it? You know. So when I first started doing my version of Mary Jane, rather than having the bangs kind of like that spiky classic look, I kind of did a swept to the side bangs, and also I lightened up her hair. It's more of a strawberry blonde kind of, I guess, or kind of strawberry redhead kind of, and then also because she was a redhead, I was like, why don't they ever draw her with freckles? Yeah, so that was
like, you did that.
And I remember submitting I still can remember submitting the first cover going, well, they'll probably tell me to take the freckles away, because that's like not canon or model or whatever it is. And it got through. And I remember thinking like, oh, neat. Like they didn't tell me to make her hair darker or to change the freckles. In fact, actually, I don't really typically color my own work. I usually tend to work with typical comic book fashion. You know, there's a bit of an assembly line to it. But that particular one, the very first image, that's still kind of the one people still kind of call out, where Mary Jane is sitting on a couch with the coffee, that many people have seen over the years. That one I actually colored myself because I had to get it done, and I didn't really know what I was doing, because I'm not typically a colorist. So it's funny. So I got to pick the shade of red for her hair. I got to do the freckles and the effect I wanted, and that kind of became like sort of like the model that every colorist I worked with since then would sort of make her look like that version of Mary Jane. So when I did the statue with you guys, to not only be able to have done those covers, but to do a statue that still represented that sort of off the beaten path sort of way of doing Mary Jane, I was really excited to sort of have that go to sort of like that level of I guess you could say, going on and off into time now with that statue existing is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in that case, like I did feel like I was able to sort of bring my own artistic little twist to it and kind of leave my stamp on an iconic character that hopefully is unique to what I brought to it. I'd like to think.
Absolutely,
anyway.
absolutely. We have a lot of questions. So, J. Scott Campbell, how close do you work with the sculptors and artists to create an overall art design? I think he's talking about specifically.
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I mean, I'd say as much as I want to. Really, it's if anything, it's like sometimes there's if anything, sometimes my day job doing comic book art can sometimes delay my getting involved in sort of like kind of going back and forth. But Sideshow's been fantastic about. Getting my feedback, sort of like through the whole process, saying, tweak this, add that. What if we did this? What if we did that? And I think both the Abby Chase and the Little Mermaid that you guys showed a few weeks ago. I think these are. It also kind of comes about because we've worked together so many years. I think they're building I guess you could say almost like a Bible of my style to some degree. So each I think subsequent statue is improving upon itself just because of the fact that we've been working together for a while.
Yeah.
But that being said, too, I think the working relationship, the back and forth, we have more of a rhythm now as well too. So I think each statue is just likely to just keep improving and improving from that relationship. Just the compound amount of statues we've done, they can only get better and better, I think.
This is a huge part of my job. I need your feedback. What are
Yes.
you doing?
It is true. I
I'm
mean,
busy with a Marvel cover. Dang it!
Yeah. Put that Marvel cover down. We need Abby notes. Yes. So it's and actually too, we were just talking about this yesterday too. I mean, back because I've done my share of 3D, not just with Sideshow, but other companies over the years, and sometimes the perception has always been that 3D just takes forever. It's unlike a comic book where you draw the cover and it's out in the stands in 2 weeks. Sometimes the process of 3D, it seems like I tend to think of it as years, versus months or even weeks. And what I'm finding too, as we're talking, is you guys have it so down that I'm pretty impressed with how fast the whole process is, really, because I mean to get something like
again.
I know. Well, I mean, again, I think
for our collectors.
I think from the years of sort of doing it, I mean, like I said, to sort of see where this is at already and know where we were even just like at the beginning of this year is pretty remarkable. I mean, I think it's been a learning process for me too to sort of see how fast, by comparison to the old days, about how fast these things come together, actually.
I feel like there's a question from Facebook coming in.
Yeah, Jason Beal wants to know, do you produce new sketches and concepts for these statues, or are they entirely based on already published pieces?
No, it's a great question. I think sometimes when we first start a project, it's good to sort of get feedback from what your guys' expectations are. So sometimes I think with this particular one, there was a couple of ideas you guys presented as a direction we could kind of go, and then
that was actually our attempt at getting. I'm like, I haven't gotten designs from Scott yet, and you're like,
that'll do it.
I'm like, hey, so I'll just have one of my designers do a bunch of stuff. So you're like, no, none of these. This is how you gotta do it.
Works. It's a very effective approach.
Mind trick there.
It worked out very well. So I think that's in that case. Like I said, basically in that case, I think we won't be doing any of these, but how about this one? So but yeah, no, this was completely. I think pretty much concept up was pretty much based off of a pitch I made in return to those original ones. I think originally she was going to be, it was skewing a little more action kind of based.
Like the jungle base we talked about.
Yeah.
Concerned because you had done that before.
Yeah, just kind of like, I think it's kind of like, again, when I think Danger Girl is an interesting property in the sense that, sometimes, when I see something like Tomb Raider, for instance, it seems more natural for her to be like sliding down or in an action pose kind of thing. There's action in Danger Girl, but I also think part of Danger Girl is this sort of like, it's part, action adventure, also part like she's walking down a catwalk runway show. I mean, there's a little bit of that, and that's sort of the James Bond influence, the sense that James Bond was always very tailored and always looked like he was coming from a ball or something to go like have an action scene. So in that sense, I always thought Danger Girl was partly, like I said, they almost walk off the runway into like an action sequence. So to me, having sort of like the flame aspect while still having that sort of runway catwalk vibe, I think is really sort of one of the more unique aspects to sort of like the the property in that sense. So I kind of think that's why I really like the. I mean, to me, that's like I said, a movie trailer. Her walking away with the explosion. That
Yeah,
kind
I
of like,
also love that she's in kind of the periscope type. What are they called?
right,
The sniper
right.
rifle?
The
sight.
The sight. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The crosshairs. Yeah, exactly. If you guys can, it's hard to see, but she's
Like
actually
top
the
down.
Yeah,
the
top
top down
down.
actually has the like sort of the crosshair that typically is in front of the D. Which is
very
now actually on the
on.
base actually here, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah, it's
I
very
like
cool.
too the we worked with you too on getting that just off center because we didn't want it to be like this perfectly symmetrical thing. We wanted
Right.
a little bit more
I loved
asymmetry
it.
to the
Love
thing.
it.
Yeah.
no, for sure. And like I said, to me, I really like too that the movement of the flames swirling around her. I mean, it sounds silly because you think like you just say, "Oh, put flames there," but I mean, even
Make flames.
exactly. But what's really neat is like to me, I feel like there's a way I draw flames that you guys really captured, which is like I said, just there's just a shape that I can
Yeah.
almost see, you know, the way I would draw them. You guys really capture these shapes and the swirl and stuff like that. And again, those little details, the fact that Sideshow appreciates that and will
Yeah.
actually attempt to and oftentimes nail it is great because like I said, that's those little stylistic effects are what make my drawings look like I think what people expect it to look like, and the statue represents that. And there's a continuous thought.
Yeah,
to the whole thing.
Steve Schumacher, who sculpted it too, just
Oh my
like
gosh.
sculpted effects are really, really, really hard. A lot of people think like, oh, it's just fire, smoke, or whatever. But
Right.
to get that to have like that character, you know, and you have
For
to kinda,
sure.
like add a character to it. It's really hard to get like photorealistic fire because fire,
Right.
like physical, it's like what?
Yeah,
is
it's
that,
constant.
You know?
Yeah, it's moving. So
And
anyway.
the clear resin with the paint kind
Yeah.
of giving the
The way that all came together was amazing, and I like with going back to the question too, how this one was kind of a new design ground up.
Right.
When we worked on the Fairy Tale Fantasies, it was interesting pulling from some of the original iconic art from your
Right.
calendars. But like to me, it was when we were talking about Little Mermaid. I'm like, this is the one where we're on the same page,
Right.
and then it's kind of like, well, that's my older style. So that was kind of fun working from an original pose, then updating the art with you.
Right,
That's
right.
awesome.
It's funny too because as an artist, and I found this is pretty consistent through my entire career. You'll draw something and it'll be pretty much. I mean, it'll look correct, and then it's not a year later, but somehow the magic number of 2 years later is when you see all the what kind of are like flaws or little things you would
Is that
change.
going to be your biography title? 2
2 years later, I know. I might have to.
Sir J. Scott Campbell,
Oh my God.
Jeff or Scott? Question mark.
Yes, that's the sequel. But yeah, it's funny. It's like I mean, oftentimes if you draw a face, for instance, I learned a technique from one of my mentors, Jim Lee, very early on in my career, where if
Who's
you
that?
take
Does he do
Yeah,
art?
I-
yeah,
Oh,
you might
Jim Lee.
yeah. Look him up,
Do we
Google
know
him, you
him?
might find him.
What's the, sorry. What?
But like he did this technique where he would draw, if he was drawing a face, he would hold it up with the lamp basically
yeah.
there. He'd hold it up in reverse, and you can immediately see things that your eye can't really detect, like eyes that are like not quite straight, or if there's one that's like. So these kinds of things you catch immediately if you reverse it. And I find sometimes like that 2 years later thing is another level of that. You kind of see things. So in the case of Little Mermaid, it was nice to be able to go in and say, this is cool. I would kind of probably, if I had it to do over again, would do this, that, and the other thing. And I think it's one of those things where the little touches, I think, only improve it.
Yep.
And while the fans will hopefully still look at it and still see the piece they hopefully loved, they'll like it a little bit better and not really quite realize why.
It's kind of like a homage or fan art of your original source material.
It is. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sometimes it's like, and sometimes in cases like I said with Abby Chase as well too, it's like it's still the character, but there's little things I've learned over the years, like I'd probably tweak that. or do
Yeah.
that.
So Terrell Reed in YouTube wants to know who's your favorite character to draw, and I feel like that's
You know what? I get this question
I know.
so much. I mean, I really do. It's one of the most asked questions, and I have the most terrible answer for it because I really don't have an answer. I'd say, to me, it's like as an artist, I find. I mean, part of the reason why I've jumped around on so many projects. I mean, I have great admiration for guys like Charles Schultz, who did like the Peanuts like his entire life, decades and decades, but I tend to find that as an artist, I'm always stimulated by the thing I haven't drawn, or can I draw this in a different way? You know, like that's hence why with the Mermaid and with Abby, I'm always tweaking little things because I think as an artist, you oftentimes are a little. You don't want to be too complacent with sort of like the things you've already done, that kind of thing. Although you're also usually aware that fans will pick a favorite thing and want you to draw it a lot.
Yeah.
But I find that it's often. I mean, while it's still nice to go back and draw Mary Jane when the opportunity comes up, or Black Cat and these kinds of things. And I always like to try to bring something a little bit new to it. To me, it's like that thing that I haven't drawn yet is always the most exciting, because it's the exploration of a new way of doing something, or like creating a new character. Or if it's a character you've never drawn before, like, what's my take on this Guardians of the Galaxy character going to be? Or that, I've never drawn, like in the case of, like, I know a couple of years ago I did Rocket Raccoon, and I was going like, well, what's my Rocket Raccoon going to look like? What's that going to be? So it's neat to, and I'll usually pull out like Disney books and stuff and kind of like, well, how do they handle animals? And so it's fun problem solving, that sort of way. So usually my favorite thing to draw is usually the thing I have yet to draw.
We were talking earlier. One of his favorite things, right, was Transformers, right? Robots and boxes and straight lines.
Yeah. Not
Well, I
necessarily.
guess that's completely different than like the
kidding.
curvature.
No, you're saying.
We
were talking about. I was talking about how when I was a kid, like many kids in the '80s, Transformers was. I was a big fan of Transformers, but as I got into my professional life and the opportunity to draw Transformers came up, it wasn't until I actually sat down and was actually drawing Transformers going like, I really don't like drawing Transformers. I didn't really realize that until now.
That's amazing.
So yeah, sometimes that is an epiphany that comes up. And Transformers was one of those things I was like, yeah, I'm not loving this.
One thing I love, just to segue into something else too, was one of my favorite pieces of your art too is the whole like Danger Girl sketchbook, the Jason Campbell book, where in the bottom corner when you flip through, there's a little animation of her running away.
Right, yeah.
And I love like that clicked. I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like, it seems like you're hugely inspired by animation and movement and how things
I was.
like,
You know what that was for too? We were working at the Danger Girl video game at the time, and I didn't know a way to convey, like, they had her running in a way that just looked awkward to me, and I was trying to get that. I was like, well, no, I would picture her running more like this fluidity, and so I drew, like I said, the best I knew at the time was like, I'll just make flip animation of it, kind of, and it was a fun thing to throw into the sketchbook, because one of my favorite books of the time, again dating back to like the 80s, was this book called The Illusion of Life.
Oh, it's an awesome
book.
Wow.
It's like it's Frank and Ollie classic old
it's like
Disney
a Bible
animation.
if you go to animation school.
It
like,
is.
the
It's
first thing you
it's
read,
like the book if you want to know how Disney animation, kind of like the ins and outs of it. And they did do flip animation in the corners, and that always stayed with me. So
That's awesome.
So when I had those ones sitting around from the video game, it's like, I'm gonna stick them in the corners, just like
I
that.
thought you did that
That's
for the
awesome.
book. I was like, that's a lot
No,
of work for the bottom corner.
I think I might have filled out another, because we did animation going the other way, and I think there was one other clip of, like, I think I had another girl walk, but the whip was one of them for the video game as well, because and then I think there was one extra one I just did to fill it out, kind of just to sort of have enough space.
That's
So
awesome.
cool. Sean wants to know: are you going to try and do a Danger Girl movie ever someday?
I wish I had the ability.
No, it's like I think we answered this, but
I know. I wish I had the ability to wave a magic wand and make that happen on my will alone. But it has recently.
What, you can't fund a whole
I know. It's
right?
like what? I'm gonna go make a movie right now. But no, it's
I'll use my phone.
these days it's not as crazy as it used to be.
That's true.
But the rights were just recently optioned again for the possibility of being made into a movie. That was a learning process I had to go through years ago, that when they option a property, that doesn't necessarily mean it's greenlit and they're starting to film, but it is the first step in the process of making a movie. And it did recently, the rights just actually within this last month were actually, there was an announcement that the rights have been acquired in an option, and we'll see how that goes from here. We'll see
I
how
love
that
the
goes.
idea too of just seeing how this. I mean,
That's really cool. That deserves a clap.
I'll clap for that.
I love the idea too of translating, like seeing it now, how your work translates to 3D with this new
Right.
updated version. I love the idea too of like a 3D anime, like seeing that. It feels like she's moving. I
Oh,
love the idea
yeah.
of, like,
Right.
like seeing your style translate to like hyper realistic
Oh, for
3D
sure.
animation.
Yeah. Well, animation was always one of those things that was discussed too. I think that what's in development is the possibility of a live action or TV entity. I'm not sure which direction they want to go. They have the option of doing both. But yeah, I mean, animation. I'm always a huge fan of animation, and I would love to see that too. I would not say no to that.
Vermin Gonzalez wants to know: does J. Scott Campbell collect anything?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny. I've gone through different periods of my life where I do and don't. I'm back to collecting again, which is like funny. And I'm usually pretty selective, but I do have quite a few Sideshow statues. We were just talking about that actually down in the paint department. Actually,
the Materi, the quarter scale or the legendary scale.
I do have I do have the large. I was a big fan of Avatar. Still am a big fan of Avatar. The reason I like that design of Materi and Avatar so much is, as you can kind of see from my designs, I kind of have. My style is kind of a little bit of an elongating of features.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Avatar going like, wow, I know these are aliens, but it kind of has the aesthetic of comic books in the sense that the features were kind of elongated, the legs were longer than normal, stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely love that statue, and you guys really knocked it out of the park. And I have oh gosh, well, I have my Spider-Man statues. I have a few of those.
I collect my own work.
Well, you guys did send it to me, so. but no, it's like I have a few. It's funny. I also being a big Disney fan, stuff like that. I've got the Jessica Rabbit that you guys did.
Oh, wow.
She sculpted that.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh.
who did your Abby chase?
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
So you can put them right next to each
That's
other.
fantastic. Yeah, I could see that. Well, he's got that S curve kind of thing going on. But yeah, so I have a few of those things. But a few of the what's it called? The I try not to go crazy with those too. The hot toys that you guys also.
Oh yeah.
I the only ones I got is funny. You can get those things can get out of hand. But my whole thing was if it's something from my childhood, then I will. It's at a safe zone. So I got like I think just the original cast of the Star Wars characters from episode 4, I guess it is, because my feeling is that's the 10-year-old me finally getting the figures I wanted when I was 10. So that's kind of how I allowed myself to do that.
I kind of approach my collection the same way, except that I'm like, I grew up in the 80s also, and I'm
Right.
like, how do you pick things from the
I
80s?
know,
There's
I know.
so much good stuff that came out of the 80s.
I know. I tend to, but yeah, if I can kind of like encapsulate it in like it's funny. I mean, I see the stuff like the Avengers stuff and everything, and it's so cool and so awesome. But to me, it's like, well, as awesome as it is, like you got to be selective for what goes in your house. And my feeling is those things from the 80s, I know they've stood this test of time, and if I still like them now, I'm probably gonna like them when I'm 80. So it's like that's sort of my safe point, but still get Abby Chase anyway.
Well, kids in the 90s.
No, it is. It is. It's actually the perfect time because somebody told me just this year that it's going to be Danger Girl's 20th anniversary this coming year. So I was like, oh my god, that's crazy.
I forgot.
So it's the perfect time for this to come out.
97 or 99. I remember it was like just.
We put a preview out, I think, in 90 at the very end of 97, but the issue 1 came out in 98.
Yeah,
so.
it came out my freshman year of high school. So this like dates me.
I know. I
was
just dated myself.
I was like, I remember this coming out when I was in high school.
Right. So it's cool that it's coming out. Actually, the statue's coming out right now because it's kind of got that sort of vibe.
Oh, totally. So are you considering a Gen 13 line?
I would love to do a Gen 13 line. That's not actually in my power to grant, actually. But if there was DC Comics, when Jim Lee sold his portion of Image Comics that Gen 13 was part of to DC, DC became basically the custodians or the owners of anything that came with the Wildstorm universe. But if that ever came about where you guys got the license from DC, I would love to be involved in sort of making sure that looks right. But
they said we could. I asked because I think you and I talked about like obviously
like I think a Caitlin Fairchild. Yeah, I think a Caitlin Fairchild one would be amazing.
I think I was telling you about this the other day too. But one of my comic book shops in Colorado Springs closed down when I was in high school, and they gave me a stack of posters like, "Hey, you want these?" I'm like, "Yeah." And one of them was the door poster of
Fairchild.
I had that like in my bedroom on my door for like all of high school.
That's awesome. Back when we did a couple door posters. We did one for Abby as well. It almost seems like those have kind of gone out of fashion, but I used to love door posters.
Abby one.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, in my house.
With the film strips?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
It's in my house.
That's cool.
It's not displayed. I think it's with all the rest of the
I'd love to see, too, how you would update the costume and the look similar to like...
because it's funny. We just did there was a Wildstorm 25th anniversary book that just came out this year, and I actually wrote and drew a very short Gen 13 story. It was only 3 pages, but even then it was kind of fun. Because the premise being that they were still the same age, much like the Scooby-Doo gang, but they just happen to be now in 2017.
Oh
with cell phones.
Yeah, exactly. No, we made gags.
Instagram.
We actually made gags about all that stuff, actually.
That's
and but it was kind of fun, even just like with what's it called, Free Fall. She used to have the pink streak in her hair, and now what we did is we made like an ombre thing where it went from like dark to pink because that's more of the style now.
Yeah.
So we were doing these little updates with a lot of stuff. Even to Caitlin, I she still had more or less the same hair, but I styled it a little bit more modern. And so it is kind of fun when you go back there. It's almost like they redesigned themselves because your brain just won't let yourself do something that looks wrong or out of date. Yeah. And then therefore a new design just kind of comes about naturally, which is kind of cool.
So Trapier wants to know, have you ever done any sculpting?
What's funny is this is going back a ways. I did attempt to sculpt actually when I was working. This is going back probably early 2000s. I think we Dragon model. Remember that they used to make those. That they did. I think that's what they called themselves, Dragon. I think it was an Asian company that did military 12-inch figures.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the guy who I created Danger Girl with, Andy Hartnell, he was this huge fan of them, and he was like, we got to reach out to these guys and get them to do our 12-inch figures. And we did actually produce two 12-inch Danger Girl figures with mixed success and failure. But I remember the time when I was trying to convey to them notes at the time. I actually at one point did try to get some Sculpey and try to sculpt a partial body just to try to help them along with how I vision things. And that's not easy. I learned the hard way how much time goes into that. And I think at one point too, I tried to just for my own fun tried to make a Hulk head once just to sort of see if I could work it out. But it was fun. I can't say I've returned to it anytime recently, but I have tried it, and I do have a ton of respect.
Wow.
I do have a ton of respect for what goes into it. It's not as easy as it looks. That's for sure.
ZBrush makes it a little bit easier. It's definitely not like a do it for you kind of a thing. But
Sure.
yeah, I think that's even when we were talking about even if you learn that when we're working on these models, because now everything
Right.
with you is digital, we can send you the models. You can open them up and look at them.
That would be
just
very
the
cool.
images we send you,
I'm not
so.
sure why we never had that conversation until now, but we should do that.
Because that would make you that much more picky about it.
I know.
You turn it,
Yeah.
and then you're just
Wise-
like,
wise man.
angle, this one thing. That, oh my
Yes, quite wise.
So B&E Outdoors says, if you could choose any artist, dead or alive, to have a sit-down with, who would it be and why?
That's a good one.
That is a really good question. I mean, it's probably between two people, so I should probably
You could
pick
just
the one.
say both. Say both.
I mean, for some reason, the first one that comes to mind is Walt Disney.
Wow.
Mainly because it's funny too, as you get to know more about Walt Disney, you realize he didn't draw as much as people sometimes put or assume. But just sort of that he's such a visionary in the sense that he took. I really respect the fact that it was part creativity and part business. I mean, the business aspect of it, I think, is really impressive too. Because as having my own IPs and stuff like that, you start to, and I'm always talking to fellow artists, so much about doing art and doing it successfully is having a business mindset too.
Yeah.
And I really respect that. And I think also the other artist that comes to mind is I'm a big fan of this painter from the 1960s. I think Gil Elfgren. If you guys don't know who that is, look that guy up. You'll see a lot of the influence on my work. Pin-up-y kind of painter who did, I think they were like calendars that often were in like mechanics workshops kind of, but they were very pretty, like girl next door paintings, and it still influences a lot of like what I do now. He just had this way with almost like the Norman Rockwell of like kind of like pin-up-y kind of like girl art in the 1960s, and I would just love to get some insights from that guy, because he there was a lot going on in that artwork that I feel like were secrets that died with him, and I would love to know some of those insights.
So then our final question, which actually kind of brings everything together,
Sure.
is how do you recommend evolving and learning while keeping your own distinct style?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
That is a very good question. I've actually often thought about this too. I mean, it's so hard. To some degree, you can be a little calculated with how you come up with a style. I think most styles come about organically because artists aren't typically calculated that way. But I've since backwards engineered my own style a little bit to sort of see if there was some calculation or manipulation going on to steer my style a certain way that even I wasn't aware of really. But what I often tell people is if you feel lost with your style, usually you can think of like 5 artists you really like or really admire, or perhaps got you into what you want to do. I often tell people, like, make a list, like say pick 5 traits of each of those artists and why you think that their art stood out to you and was uniquely special. Wow. And then you'll kind of have a little bit of a list there that you can kind of like, it kind of starts to point the direction of where you probably generally want to go with your art. And I think also by having 5, you're not going to be derivative of any one, because that's the other thing you want to avoid too. A lot of people will pick their one and only favorite and be completely derivative of that one particular artist, and that never works. Yeah. You're never going to do that guy's style better than he's already doing it. But if you, to me, it's like making a soup or a stew or something like that. Each ingredient you throw in, you're changing it to some degree. And my style, even now, I'll see a technique or a little thing here and there, and I'm always I almost feel like it's that show Heroes. Remember, like back when it was on, like that character Skylar, how he was like taking the powers of each of the. To me, I always think if I see a style, a little trick, like even if it's like, oh, I like how he did smoke there, or I like that color scheme that they did there. To me, it's like you're kind of like absorbing superpowers. You're kind of like going like, oh, let me take a little bit of that superpower and throw it in with mine, see what happens. And sometimes it doesn't work, but I think to some degree, if you make a list of those sort of stylistic aspects, you'll hopefully weed out the things that are dead ends. You'll kind of create a little bit of a something you're aiming for. At least you're aiming at least your compass somewhere where you're steering the boat a little bit. And I think with some experimentation and that sort of like focus on what you at least want to try to accomplish with your own art style, you could possibly end up coming up with an art style that's a little more calculated and directed. But I definitely think we are in a day and age where there's so much access to so much great computer programs. There's endless amounts of art you can be exposed to online that I think it's more important than ever to find your unique voice, because there's so much great art out there. But I shouldn't say very rarely, but a lot of it tends to be derivative of itself. And I think if you want to break out, style is very important, especially if you want to have that unique identity. It's just like with music, you could be a great musician, but if you don't find a unique way to present your music, you're going to just be a session musician who's great. But you're not going to be somebody who breaks out. And so style is very important if you definitely want to have that sort of that identity that draws fans uniquely to you. So.
Wow. Okay.
Was that a lot to?
That's awesome.
Throwing a lot out the window.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. Thanks.
I brought
this guy.
Thanks, guys.
How many phone calls? Yeah, that's
Thanks, this guy.
Get over here.
Yeah, we're like, where are you? And thank you all for watching and tuning in. Remember, we will be back later with our second show of the day with other awesome special guests. Remember to go to sideshow.com/notify to learn how to stay up to date with every time we go live. So we will see you somewhere around 2 p.m. You're watching Sideshow Live. And don't forget to let your geek side show. Thanks, guys. Bye.